loud? Too loud? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. How is everyone? Good. Seems a little strange to be talking about what I do with my summer. But I guess that's what this is all about. So people want me to account for my time, I think is what it is. Well, I watched a lot of TV, I sat on the couch. No, that's not what it is. So still some people coming in. Come on in. Great. So I'm going to try and keep on time here because, you know how it is when you want to talk about your vacation, you could talk for hours, right? And really people don't want to hear hours worth of talk about your vacation. So, and it wasn't a vacation, it was a sabbatical. Those of you who don't know, the ELCA tries to offer sabbaticals to their pastors every 7 years. So every 7 years, the idea is that you take 3 months off and rejuvenate, refresh, train, get some education, just step away for a while, so that hopefully when you return, you're ready to go. So that's what that was all about. In my 20 years, I've been here at St. Matthew's 20 years, I did a short one at my first 7 years. That's where really I took 2 months to really just focus on getting the purpose-driven life together. And those of you who were here during that time, almost 14 years ago, we did a big project with that. We had 65 small groups meeting. We had, a lot of people reading the book and discussing it, and so it was a really good thing. But it was a lot of work getting it all together. So that's kind of what that sabbatical was all about. Since then, I have not taken a sabbatical. So this is the first one in 14 years, and partly that was because of things that kind of just took place in the congregation with Sue Erickson passing away, and then the whole time after that, as we as a congregation continue to grieve and struggle through that time, then Pastor Gary retiring and launching into all the discussions that go with that. And so it's just been a continual running during that whole time, so it really hasn't allowed for a sabbatical. So now that we're kind of fully staffed, it's nice to have that chance to do that. So that's kind of how it worked. It also tied to, we've got 2 seats right here in the front. My aunt and uncle, we'll put them right in the front. In case you don't know my aunt and uncle, Peggy and Jack Christensen. So they're my parents now that my parents aren't gone. So they get the front row seats.
Stay awake.
And you got to stay awake, that's right. I think I'm the only one that really has to stay awake. So it was a chance to finally get to do that, and but trying to figure out when's the right time and when does it slow down around here enough to have that chance is a challenge. So we tied it into July, August, and September is the timing, because June is full of mission trips and confirmation camp that we always do, and just kind of closing out the year. July and August are sometimes quiet, although Vacation Bible School is often busy, and we did that also. And then September is crazy, and that was one of those nice things to not have to be a part of. So it's a nice thing that way. So I'm going to try and stick to script here. Couple things that I did as I thought about the time, as tried to work on it, what I actually did on top of it. Just time to step away and step back from the ministry. St. Matthew's is a busy place, and we're always running. We're always running. And so just stepping back was really a helpful thing. Do I need to send ushers to get more chairs?
Sure.
Did they go get some? Thank you. Kind of compared it to someone who is retiring. I hear so often from people who retire, it's kind of that, what does it mean to step back? And what does it mean to change pace? That's kind of what I went through, and it's I feel for you. It's a whole different time in life, and trying to figure that out is a little bit of a challenge. So it was a bit of a challenge for me. I tend to be someone who runs, and is not running literally, but just running active in my life, a lot of things going on. And so stepping back was a challenge for me. I tried to take my health a little bit more seriously than I do when I'm busy with ministry, and so tried to get out and do almost a 4 to 5 mile walk each day, 4 or 5 mile, not 45. My dogs really appreciated that, so now they get that point where they stand next to the door looking at me like, is this the day we're going for a walk? And lately I've been saying, no, we're not doing a walk today, too busy. Wanted to do something I enjoyed, which was photography. So really throughout the whole 3 months, really was involved in photography, as I'm kind of always am, but was given a little bit more freedom to just do that. It's with photography, it's for me, it's one of those things you kind of need space and time for. I think about a time with my father when we went to the Smoky Mountains and we were going up Klingman's Dome. If you know where Klingman's Dome is, it's got a nice trail. It's not too hard to get to the very top of the Smokies. And we just took 3 hours to walk that half-an-hour trail. There was even a time where we were down and we were taking pictures of these tiny little flowers that grow at the top there where the wind barely lets them grow. And we're sitting there for about 45 minutes just taking these pictures of these little flowers. And this little boy comes along as we're up there. And he stops along with us and he's studying these flowers. And we're looking at it and we're taking pictures. And he finally says, "What are we looking at?" And I said, "Well, the flowers." He goes, "Oh, that's all." I think he expected a snake to pop out of the flowers or something exciting. But so often, especially when you're with my family, you don't have time to do that, because if you stop for more than 10 seconds to take a picture, it's like, are we done yet? And we keep moving. Especially if I stop the car, it's like, oh, here we go again. So having time to just be able to do that on my own schedule is really nice. Family time, often I'm busy, I'm often gone a lot. So trying to have more family time, having the kids back home, Avery back from college, Noah preparing to go to college. Wanted to have some more time with them, especially before they left to go back to college. Unfortunately, Avery worked at camp. Fortunately or unfortunately, Avery worked at camp this summer, and then she said to Noah, "Hey, you should do this too." And so he's like, "Okay," and so suddenly he was at camp too, so they were gone a lot, and so trying to get some time with them. And then just in general, the goals, some edification, some learning, some time. I always think going to other churches is really helpful because you see worship in a different way. And by the way, if you ever experience something at worship at another church and you're like, "Oh, we should do this at St." Please tell us. We're always looking for those ideas. We're always looking for those little things. Sometimes you just come back appreciating what we already do. So I tried to get to other churches, and I got to about 5 of them during the time that I was around here, not traveling. Spending time in Hepatha, which is an inner city church. Mary Martha Kinnis has been there for 20 years herself, and it was really amazing watching worship happen there, because she just kind of floats, and she'll kind of stop the liturgy, and she'll kind of walk into the middle of the congregation and say, "Joe today got an A on his test this week. I think we need to applaud Joe for his hard work," And it's just this uplifting of the community, and someone just retired. I think we need to celebrate that. Someone just had a death in the family, and she just kind of floats during the service and does that. And it's a very, very earthy, very communal sense, and it was just really neat to be a part of that. And then, of course, she and I know each other, so she signaled me out, and suddenly I was up helping with communion. And they do communion for all ages. So to commune a baby was a new experience for me. And, to dip the bread into the wine and give them a little bit of that was a whole new experience. And because of that experience, we're actually discussing here at St. Matthew's the theology of communion and the theology of what age is proper, or is there an age, if we really take the theology of what sacraments are seriously. And so you'll be hearing more about that as well coming up. And then something I always love doing is travel, and You know, anytime someone says to me, hey, you want to go on a trip? With a, yep, let's go. I'm ready to go. So did some travel during this time too, and I'll show you some pictures of that. And then just general projects. I had some projects that I was working on. I'll show you some of those as well. So those are some of the overall goals, so you kind of know where we're going. Just wanted to give you the general schedule, so those of us who are linear thinkers kind of know how this worked for me. July, and actually even started in May with going to the Festival of Homiletics. It was down in Georgia, in Atlanta, and there was about 25 of us, pastors from the synod that went to it. It's a yearly preaching festival where they bring in the best and the brightest preachers in the country, and you know, and you just really walk away going, wow, am I terrible? That's what I got out of it. No. But no, awesome preachers, and you know, to hear some of them were just incredible. So it's a time to think about your craft and think about how you preach and why you preach the way you do. And so it was a great, great week of learning there. We did the mission trip worship service, and I helped with that and kind of put the video together. So that was part of also what I did, some of the video stuff I worked on. Well, I didn't think we needed this many chairs. I didn't think anybody would be here that was actually interested in that. We did a family trip to New Jersey, and I went looking for pictures. I can't find my drive that has those pictures on it. So if you're like me, I tend to have, I think I have 25 different hard drives that have each on them about 20 libraries. So trying to find where that library is that has the pictures was a bit of a challenge today. And I should have brought in some nice and neat pictures. But we went out to see my brother and his wife, and they just had a baby. My brother is, I don't even know how old he is, 43, I think. And he just had his first baby. And so we got to go meet her, and they live in Boston, so that was really nice to get to spend time with them. And I went to camp. So since the kids were at camp, I'm like, I'm going to go to camp for the week. I've got the flexibility to be able to do this. I went to camp and just kind of helped out. So I mowed the lawn, I helped out with the dishes, I helped out with serving, and they needed some speakers replaced in their ceilings, so I worked on that. But it was just kind of being around the kids, and when they were free, I was able to kind of tag along with them and see them at work, and just really walked away really proud of who they are. So they make great camp counselors.
Where's Gatto Camp?
What is that?
Where's Gatto Camp?
Gatto Camp.
Yeah.
What did I say up there? Go to. Thanks, Norman. I was not an English major. I was a science, computer science major. No, it was Pine Lake Camp up in Waupaca. So near Waupaca Wild Rose area. So in August, I still wanted to help with VBS, so we did that, which is always a huge week. Although what's kind of nice about not working at that time is you leave in the afternoons. So when everybody else leaves, you go. And so it was kind of nice to not have to worry about that as much. We also celebrated Noah's high school graduation, which is, as anybody knows, means getting the whole house ready and the yard ready. And for some reason it means like making it look really nice for everyone else, even though we don't try to do that for ourselves. So that was a big event. And then during August, went for 2 weeks to Tanzania, and that was following Pastor Elias. So we'll talk about that in a minute too. And then sending off Noah and Avery to college and the bishop's retirement celebration. These are all things that I did in August. And September was a little quieter. The first part of it, I'll talk about going to see Noah. And then the last part of September was a trip to Peru. So that's kind of how my September went. A little quieter, which was nice. So family time, it was a nice chance to just, like I said, be with the kids, really try to get some quality time in before they left. Noah and I did, I've kind of worked it out for him to be a photographer too, so you know how you do that with your kids, you teach them what you love, so like when
he's an angel.
He's an angel. we staged that shot. We had to make them open the wings of the Calatrava. They weren't open. Come on, get them open. That was the sending him off to college shot with his wings spread wide. But we went down and shot pictures down at the lake and had a great time. Like I said, you kind of teach your kids to like the things you like. So when they were 1, I made sure they liked mushrooms. Because I wanted mushrooms on my pizza. So, don't you love this? This is great. Huh? So that was fun. But we just did some nice photography down at the lake and enjoyed it. Really a beautiful day down there. Like I said, getting him off to Luther College was a fun experience and a sad experience at the same time, but that was a big part of our family time, getting them ready. This is a shot which is a lot happier than it actually was. It looks a lot happier than it actually was. So Noah really had a rough start. I've told that to a lot of people. When you go to college, you leave your life, you leave all your friends, you leave your family, you leave your comfortable house, you leave your comfortable life, you leave all your activities, and you try to start a new life. So he got there and he wasn't so excited about this, and he really kind of shut down. And Noah's not someone who shuts down. So it was kind of concerning to us, and he even said, "I'm not sure I'm in the right place." And we said, it's only been a week. It'll be okay, but he wasn't trying to make friends. He wasn't trying to talk to anybody, and was kind of staying to himself. And so that was concerning to us. So luckily, he needed his passport after the first week for work study. Work study now makes you bring a passport. And so he didn't have it, so I was able to drive it up, and it was nice to have the flexible time to just be able to do that. And go up there, and we spent a couple days there, sleeping overnight at a hotel, and connecting with Avery and Noah, and kind of seeing how he was doing. And what was really nice, by the time I left, as I left, he had a group of kids saying, "Hey, we're doing a movie, you want to come along?" And he was like, spirits kind of starting to pick up, and within about a week, he was already making friends. And now he loves it, and he's having a great time. But it was kind of scary to see your kids have a rough time at the beginning. And it was nice with the sabbatical to have that flexible time. I'm sure even if I had been full-time working, I would have just set aside the time. But it was nice to get up there and be with them. As I mentioned, we had the big graduation party, and that was part of our family time and preparing for that. Also, it was nice to just do some more photography with Noah. As the monarchs were coming in, we started chasing them around the Monarch Trail, and as you all know where that is, right? Over by the county grounds, and so he was doing some great photography too. So it was pretty cool. And I didn't put, trying to find pictures of what to put up here. We found a bunch that were actually tagged, so it's kind of cool to find them when they're tagged, and they've been. There's an organization, I think it's in Kansas, that actually records the movement of the monarchs, and so we actually found, I think it was 3 of them that were tagged, and so it's fun to then report in where they are, and then to see them heading down to Mexico, and it's really interesting to see them kind of funnel into one spot. So they all start kind of in the north and Canada and start to really funnel in. So seeing their trail just is really interesting to watch. So that was a lot of fun to do photography in that way. And honestly, nature photography is one of my favorite things. It just always reminds me of God's creation and how amazing it is, especially flowers. They just are truly amazing. Then you get monarchs like this that are, you can't believe that they travel across the country with those tiny little frail wings. I just don't understand that. So really appreciating that was really wonderful and be able to do. Some photography just back and forth to Luther. It's really a pretty country, but you have to be careful when you pull off your car on the side of the road and the trucks are going by you and things like that. So it was fun to be able to do some of that. VBS was a big part. Also family time I would include it as, just because it's working with Donna and making this all happen is a big deal. And I enjoy the photography with that as well because the kids are wonderful. And was fun that way. So I already mentioned going to the preaching conference. It was at an incredible church in I want to say Buckwheat, but that's wrong. In Atlanta, Buckwheat? Buckhorn. Buckhead. One of those. Beautiful part of town, and really a wonderful conference. Although it made me appreciate our sound system, because that kind of space is really hard to get a sound system right, and it's really hard to hear. So that was a challenge. I always sat next to the speaker, put my ear to the speaker. But that was really a neat thing to be with the bishop and a group of people that we kind of hung around with and went to the various talks on. So the other part of, just like I said, going to other churches, this was a day where I went up to Sheboygan. I don't get to Sheboygan barely ever, and it's quite a drive. It's about an hour drive up there. And went to see Pastor Raphael. So it was kind of, where am I going to go this Sunday? I have the day. He happened to be in town. He's from El Salvador. He's one of our El Salvador pastors. This is his partner church. They actually have a Salvadoran cross up right in the middle of their church wall. And this is one of the old standard crosses you can't get anymore. I've been trying to encourage them to make these crosses, but the artist died, and they don't make them anymore. So it was neat to be with him, and there's just this real, he and I have clicked where he calls me his crazy brother. I say he's more crazy than I am. But it's fun to be together with him, and he's the husband of Pastor Norma, who passed away. So it's been a little over a year now. And so whenever we get to be together, it's part of that remembrance and solidarity in her death. So it was wonderful to just be with him and go up there. And then I didn't get any pictures of this. I didn't put up any pictures. I took pictures, but I didn't put them up here in the slideshow. Coming back through the Kettle Moraine Forest and that scenic drive they have through there, that was pretty cool.
Is that St. Peter's?
That's St. Peter's, yeah. Yeah, I forget the pastor's name. The other pastor's name that was up there, not Pastor Raphael. But, so then some travel. That was another big part of this. So two major things. I mentioned briefly our week out in New Jersey with my brother, and we had a wonderful time doing that just because, well, not just because, but being with my brother and his family has been really nice. His in-laws live on a beautiful mansion in New Jersey, so being able to spend time there with their boats and everything else, the kids got a little spoiled. So that's where we did their wedding, was right there, which was kind of cool. So we had a really nice time out there, and also just kind of a road trip. So people don't do road trips anymore, so the kids were really disappointed we weren't flying, but when I was looking at airfare, it was like $400 a person. It was like $2,000 for just to get out there. I'm like, I think we can drive. I think that'd be a much better idea. So anyway, so one of the first big trips, one of the international trips, was to Tanzania. And as many of us know, Pastor Elias, who's been here, how many people, I'm just curious, know Pastor Elias? Because I know he left. He's been gone almost 8 years, so those that would have joined since then wouldn't know him. But he's kind of come back here and there, but he was here more full-time-ish early on, 2005, I think it was, through 2008. So anyway, he's been a good friend of mine. We get together periodically. Usually, for some odd reason, we go to Olive Garden. That's our go-to restaurant. And the waitresses always hate us because we're there for 4 hours. So, you're gonna move off my table? Yeah. So anyway, he was going back. This has been a really long struggle for him because when he came here, he was escaping threats of violence. The story kind of went, I kind of compared it to Harry Potter, which is kind of interesting. He was someone who really stood up and spoke up against what a group of people were trying to do to the church. So what was trying to take place was a group of traditional, the African traditional religion was trying to say, let's merge with the Lutheran Church and let's bring in some of the customs of the African church, the African religion, you know. And really, if you boil it all down, you know, it always gets boiled down to one topic that nobody can budge on. The one topic that nobody could budge on, or they were really wrestling over, trying to decide which way to go, was the marriage of multiple wives. So that African religion was you could have as many wives as you wanted. In fact, his father had 5 wives. So I think he has something like 47 brothers and sisters. So that was really one of the main points that this group was trying to bring in. Why don't, you know, it's fine to have multiple wives. And he really became kind of the poster child, poster person, adult, to stand up and say, no, we're not doing that. You know, Christianity says this, and this is what we're going to do. And so he really became the voice that really kind of stood up. Even though people were right behind him and supportive of him, he was the one that was vocal about it. And literally that other group started to come after him. And I think it was on 3 occasions tried to kill him. So once was on a road, as we were driving on this road, he had the vehicle stop. He's like, right here is where they tried to kill me. It was like, you know, pretty shocking. But also in his house they came, and part of the sad story is that one of the people was one of his brothers. So that brother actually tried to have him killed. So he came here during that time to kind of escape these threats. And that was partly why he started his ministry here, why he came in this direction. But we had already been talking as a synod about this other concept of north to south. So reverse missions, you know, sending a missionary here from Africa. We always think about it the other way, that we send our missionaries to foreign countries. But what's really amazing is that our churches in this country are declining dramatically. Their churches there are splitting, they're getting so big. So Singisi is right now in the process and discussions of becoming 2 churches. They have a preaching point called Kiera, and we go there, and then Singisi they call it Singisi Center. And they are getting so big that they are probably going to become 2 separate churches. Now they'll probably still work together, and they'll still be friendly and all that, and they all know each other. But that's what's happening to many churches there. So their membership is just doubling. It's getting huge. So that was part of the discussion, was what can they really share with us? How do they help us to grow? And having him come to our area was part of that too. So to keep going with the story, that's part of the backdrop to who he is. Throughout that time, as he's continued to go back to Tanzania, and we've gone with him on multiple trips, it's amazing to see the people's love for him. And I think partly that sense of how the people appreciate him and love him, I mean, it's extreme. I don't want to say it is a feverish kind of thing, but when you go there, his phone doesn't stop ringing. People come out of the woodwork. When I was there this last time, group after group after group would show up just out of nowhere. We were having breakfast at his house, and this group walks in, and they just walk in. There's about 10 of them, and they sit down in his front room. They kind of quietly sit there waiting for him to be done with his breakfast. I'm like, there's some people here. I know. It's like, we'll get to them in a minute. And that's kind of how it went. The group after group would show up. One group showed up, and they brought 2 little children. And the tradition in, I guess, Tanzania, I won't say all of Africa because that's like saying all of North America. In Tanzania is if you bring 2 children and they do the request, they ask for what you want, then you can't deny them. So they had a boy and a girl, 2, and they got down in front of him, and they, you know, and then the request was made, and Elias had acquired a piece of property in Usa River. I don't really know where it is, but they wanted to build a church on it. And so they were coming to say, please give us that property. And it was like, okay, it's like saying, I want your house, please give me that. Luckily, he had already sold it. So he's like, I'm really sorry, but I already sold it a while ago. And they were like, oh. So they were very disappointed. But it was really interesting that one of those cultures that happened. And that was part of what I learned on this trip was new things about Tanzania. It's always amazing to me. You go there once and you think you know everything. And I'm a part of the Meru Synod Committee. We just met yesterday. We meet every month, and we have about 25 churches in our synod that have gone to Tanzania. And you always see the new people come back that have just gone, and now they want to be a part of the committee, the synod committee. And it's kind of funny because they have this sense like, I know Tanzania, and they start telling you stuff, and you're like, no, that's not right, like, but this is how it is. I'm like, well, not really, and we're all kind of politely kind of smiling on. But I learned a lot of things on this trip. One of the things that's kind of funny is we were having coffee one day, and Pastor Elliot says, you ever wonder why they only give you half a cup of coffee? I kind of thought about it, I'm like, yeah, they don't really pour a full glass, and I usually have to go back for 4 or 5 because I like my coffee. And he said, yeah, I've kind of noticed. He goes, well, they pour us full glasses, have you noticed that? And he goes, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, that is kind of weird. He goes, well, it's because you Americans have such long noses. and they're worried about you dipping your nose in the coffee. He goes, we all have flat noses here, and you have such long noses, they're worried about you burning your nose in the coffee. Okay? So these little funny things that you learn. A more serious thing that the last time we went 2 years ago, one thing that's really exploded in the Arusha area in Tanzania has been motorcycles. Motorcycles are now everywhere. And 2 years ago when we went, there was this discussion. We had a long discussion with the orthopedic doctor at the hospital, Dr. Kiwesa, and he really was lamenting the motorcycles and really talking about how horrible they were because so many accidents were happening, and these young people would break their legs, break their bones, and he was an orthopedic surgeon, and he knew often he wouldn't be able to get them back quite right. And they were often going to be crippled, or they couldn't afford to have any sort of medical care. And he said, we're going to lose an entire generation to these motorcycles. And that was really pretty scary for us to hear. And you start to go, is it really worth having all these motorcycles? Going this time, I saw a different side. I think there's still a very large concern for safety and the motorcycles, and they're everywhere. There'll literally be 100 of them lined up in town. And what I learned was how they have now helped the whole country become mobile. So one story that Pastor Ellie's talked about was how his wife Ellie's mother would often walk to their house. Now, that's how they'd say it. She walks to our house. Well, I found out where she lives. It's up in Ndombo, which is about a 40-minute drive. And they're up on Mount Meru, so it's up quite a bit. When you go up to Ndombo, they have this beautiful view where the trees open up and you can see all the way down to Usa River. And it's this gorgeous view. And you realize you're up on the mountain. I mean, as you come up the mountain, you just don't appreciate that. But then when you get up there, you're like, we're way up there. She walks from there, down into town, through all the traffic, and then back up to his house, which is in Mulala, which is also up a little bit of a hill. It's not quite as far up the hill. But it's about a 40-minute drive. And so they would say, oh yeah, Mother's here. She walked. And it's like, what do you mean she walked? I mean, she's about 90. And she's just this frail little lady, and she walks. And then after she's been there 2 hours having dinner, tea, coffee, it's time for her to go home. I'm like, it's dark outside. What do you mean she's walking? That's like a 3-hour walk, you know? And that's just amazing to me, and she still does it. I'm not saying she doesn't do it, she does it. But what these motorcycles have become are little taxis. So people now know, for $1, you know, they actually call them dollars, you know, dollars. A boda is another word. But they, for $1, they can get a ride. And they can go where they need to go for $1, you know, and a lot of them will have, you know, a little bit of money. If they need to get someplace, they can get there. And you see them as now always available to get people around. Whereas in the past, everybody walked. Everybody walked. You know, you had to go someplace. And that's where, for example, the education system is all boarding schools. If kids go to high school, it's all boarding schools because it's about a 2-hour walk to school. You know, it's only a 20-minute drive, but it's, you know, it's about 2 hours to get to the schools, especially the good ones. And so it just became the kids all live at the schools, and which then of course costs more and everything else. Those kids aren't at home to be with their family, and they're also there. They're not there to help with the crops and help as a very agricultural society. So I started to see the appreciation for what the motorcycles have done for the country. And you can almost sense the whole country is coming up and being more active. It used to be just really chill. Everybody was really kind of just, you know, pole, slowly, you know, you don't need to rush around. Haraka, hyena baraka. Haste has no blessings. That's the phrase. Haraka means hurry up. So there is a sense now that people are moving and getting around more, and they can get more done. And the stuff, I didn't really find any of these pictures, but the stuff they put on the backs of the motorcycles is pretty amazing. So often when they bring the food for the cows, if they bring a whole bunch of corn stalks, they'll have, you know, huge pile of corn stalks on the back of these motorcycles. I've seen 4 people on a motorcycle, you know, often with a little baby. I mean, that's where you go, this isn't safe. But at the same time, people are able to get around more, which in the past would have been a major feat to do it. So it's been interesting to see that change. One of the other changes that has really taken place is these are evangelists. So this picture is what we were met when we went out to the Messiah Church. So to get out to the Messiah Church, it's way out. It's a good 2-hour drive out into the, I won't call it desert, I'll call it the wilderness, just because it's way out there and there's nothing out there. And so these are the evangelists of the Messiah Church. I think they have 7 of them. And the church has 5 different preaching points. So, and those preaching points are a good half an hour away from each other. So in the past, the evangelists, as they thought about their day, because they act as the pastor, essentially, usually have one pastor for the congregation, and then the evangelists go and do the actual work of, you know, going and visiting with people, praying for people, visiting in the hospital, whatever, sometimes even helping to give birth, you know, all those kind of things. They're the real hands, boots on the ground people. They used to, if they had to go visit somebody the day, that was all they could get done, was that one visit, because it would take them a couple hours to walk to that house and wherever the person was living, and then a couple hours to get back, and that was pretty much their day. Now, they've purchased motorcycles for them. And so each of the evangelists has motorcycles, and it's becoming more and more of a trend in the congregations for the pastors and the evangelists to all have motorcycles to get around. There's a funny story that one of the motorcycles was given at the assembly, and it was given to a lady that obviously was not too excited about riding a motorcycle. It was kind of one of these like, really? I gotta ride that? And how, you know, and she was a petite lady, and they gave her a really big motorcycle. It was one of these like, okay, I hope this works. So anyway, when we went out to visit them, they met us in town, and then they brought us out to the church. This is Ilkramuni Church. Again, Pastor Elias is really revered out there. People really see him as a wonderful person. And this man, it wasn't a Packers hat, but it was darn close. He is, and he made sure everybody knew, he is the person that started this church. So he is the one that went to the synod and said, we need a Lutheran church in this area. And so he is considered the founder of the Messiah church out in the area. And so he was really proud, and he kept kind of saying, I'm the founder, I'm the founder. We got it, you're the founder. But it was really pretty neat to be with them. The church, they tend to be smaller buildings, but squeeze people in. So it's amazing how people just keep coming in the doors and keep finding a spot, kind of like today in this room. The men sit on one side, the ladies sit on the other, the choir sits by themselves on a different side. But it was really a wonderful time to be with them. One of the things here's one of the motorcycles coming in. We actually purchased this as a congregation for one of the evangelists. There were 7, and they only had 6 motorcycles, so we gave them the last motorcycle, and it was kind of this exciting thing that it was like, they could, and imagine being the last evangelist that doesn't have one. You're like, oh, everybody else has a motorcycle. Through the gift of one of our members, we were able to give that. So it was kind of neat to have that. And then the traditional, after the service, we've done that here at St. Matthew's, where as soon as the service is over, you go outside and you auction. So people that don't have any money, they'll bring a stalk of bananas off their tree. They'll bring some firewood. They cut down a tree and they've got some firewood because every meal is cooked on fire. They'll bring in sugar canes. They'll bring in some eggs that their chicken laid. And then they just auction them off. And that's how the church also raises money to do its ministry. This is the choir bringing us in, so that was kind of cool as they sang and led us into the village. And the choir, they're always dressed just really fancy. They all have piercings, and they all have all sorts of jewelry, which is just really cool. By the way, if you want to see more pictures, on my Facebook page, I've got from the whole trip, I think there's about 8,000. So I think this day I took about 1,000. So you can go see more if you want. I kept it down to about a few. Pastor Elias, like I said, he's kind of, everyone was kind of rooting for him to be the bishop, and this is right before the assembly. So everywhere we went, there was kind of this buzz. Is he going to get voted in? Is this going to be it? Is he going to be the bishop? And getting back to the little bit of his story, I'm kind of rambling here. Getting back to his story, like I said, he was kind of like that boy who lived, being the one that escaped and survived even with the attacks. And then right after that, that other church that was trying to come in, they said, nope, we're not doing that. And so the Lutheran Church kind of stood on what Pastor Elias had been campaigning for. And it's interesting, that church still has locations. They call themselves the Tanzanian Evangelist Christian Church, I think is what they call themselves, something like that. But they are really dying. And 2 years ago when we were at the assembly, the leader of that church came in and said, it was kind of like this last-ditch effort. And he kind of said, hey, we should all just get along. It's kind of what he was saying. We should just get along, and why don't we just forget all that stuff? Let's just be together. And everybody just kind of laughed, and it was just like, wow, So they said no to that one too. So they're partly because I'm trying to be political here in how I say this. Partly because of how Pastor Elias is really loved over there, and the sense of how he is revered by the people. I think there's some jealousy by some of the other leaders, and it's been a struggle for him to go back because some of those other leaders, including the bishop, really really have had a sense of just not really welcoming him back, and I think it has a lot to do with jealousy. So it's been kind of this continuous struggle for him of not really being welcomed back. It's kind of like, you're not part of us anymore. You're in America, so you know. But he would go back almost twice a year to see his mother, who lived in his house, and check on things and be there. So with this time, as we were coming to this, the bishop, who has been bishop for 25 years, and by the way, there was never an official election for him to be bishop. There was this crisis, and they said, you got to be bishop. And it was even before the Elias crisis. And so they made Bishop Akio bishop, and throughout that time, the best way I can describe it is almost like, instead of a bishop, the way we see it with a really democratic process, even though they talk about democracy, it probably looks a lot more and feels understandably more like a chief, a tribal chief. And the tribal chief, whatever the tribal chief says, is the way it's going to be. And so that's kind of how the bishop position has been lived out. And so the bishop 2 years ago finally said, I can't do bishop anymore. I'm getting too old, I'm done, I'm tired, I'm done. And so it was this serious, okay, now we can actually have an election and actually elect somebody that we choose. And so Elias's name was obviously a part of the list, but the list had to be brought by the bishop. Yeah. So the bishop was the one who decided who would be on the ballot. So that's where the tension comes in. And the people kept saying, are you going to get to be on the ballot? And he's like, I don't know. And we went and met with the bishop when we first got there. And the bishop said, I just want everything to be peaceful. I want everything to go well with this vote. So let's all be peaceful about this. Which was kind of like, well, why wouldn't you think it would be? And that was me kind of talking, and it was like, he knew that if his name wasn't brought, literally said, Elias was saying that people were going to riot, that it was going to be a really big uproar if his name wasn't even allowed to be on the ballot. Well, in the end, his name was on the ballot, and he won by 77% of the vote. So first vote, usually in our church, I think we did how many votes? 5? Something like that. Where you narrow it down from 20 candidates to 5 candidates to 3 candidates to 2, and then you finally get a majority. So anyway, he got a super majority, super majority, and it was exciting. But that was part of the whole story of him becoming bishop, so it's a big deal, which is happening in January. That's why we're taking a group back and celebrating with them. We're going to be at the installation. I'm told there's probably going to be like 4,000 people coming out for this thing. It's a huge deal. And then they've got all these cultural things where they have to walk the bishop back and put him to bed. So the whole gathering goes from the church down in town and walks back the bishop for getting him to his house safely, and putting him to bed. So that's going to be a fun event in January. Going through some of the other times that we had while we were there, a lot of it was just connecting with people. And really, my time with Elias was, when I do trips, I schedule them out pretty fully. The one we have in January is already, it's going to be nice, and it's cram-packed. It's really full. And so with Elias, it was more just, whatever happens, I'm following along Pastor Elias. So one day was, we had one day where it was just literally sitting at his house. And I'm not really good with sitting. So he was throwing a party for the community. And everyone was coming for this. And it's supposed to start at 1. We kind of waited till 1, and then people showed up at 3, which is kind of how Tanzania works. And nobody even thinks anything of it. It's just the way it goes. And then we had a party till about 9 that night. So it was pretty much just sit around and chat and have some goats. And so it was a fun day, but it was one of those like, I'm sitting. That's what we're here to do today. So we also spent time, this is Ellie, Pastor Ellie's wife. Do we need to crack some windows? Am I the only one warm?
The vents back here are working, so.
What's that?
The vents back here are throwing cool air now.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay. Pastor Ellie, and then they've developed a great friend, Pastor Mama Lynn Hooper, who's down in Racine. She's a nurse, registered nurse, and so she's been going with them every year for about a month to Tanzania and become a great friend of Ellie. And so when I was with them, we would do these walks around the village where this is one of my favorite things to do in Tanzania, where we go to Singisi, we do the same idea, where you go to the different homes, and maybe a home of someone that's sick or disabled, like this man is, might be somebody with AIDS, might be someone who's a recent widow, might be someone that is receiving a scholarship from us, or has received one of our cows that we've done in the past. And by the way, we're going to try and do that again as we prepare for Tanzania, where people can give $500 towards a cow, and that's a great help to people there. And so we just, even though it wasn't at Singisi, I didn't do that, did a little bit of it, but we did it at Mulala, which is where Pastor Elias's house is. Mulala is the community there. So we walked around. This man, we actually helped as a church get him a new wheelchair. He's got a wheelchair that he can do like a hand bike, but this one was completely broken and falling apart. He was trying to show us how bad it was. So we're like, we believe you, it's bad. But they actually make them in town at one of the Lutheran rehabilitation centers, and they make new wheelchairs. And so we helped to pay for that, which is about $300. We also went, this lady has AIDS, and we went to her house, we prayed with her, and it's just this visit of just being there and showing compassion and showing a sense of solidarity with people, and that was powerful to be in people's homes in this way. I really like this picture because you can tell the kids are really studying. So it's kind of it's hard to tell from your angle, but it's a blackboard on the side of their house. So the kids are doing, if I can zoom in here, no I can't. They're writing, but this is one of the kids that they sponsored. This is some of the conditions of some of the houses in town, so you get a sense of what people are living in. Just being around the kids is just fantastic, so always wonderful. This is a hungry kid. And visiting other people, an elderly man who was really sick, and just trying to pray with him and be with him. You notice how they decorate their walls with newspapers, which is always kind of interesting. And some of the cows and bulls. And Pastor Elias is someone who's great with kids. It's interesting in Tanzania how little they try to interact with the kids. The kids kind of take care of themselves. Not that they don't love the kids, but they're kind of, you take care of yourself. So you'll have a 5-year-old carrying a 1-year-old, around. And but what's cool about Elias is that he really does care for the kids, and you'll see him do this kind of thing. We went and visited one of the schools that Elias's church supports, and the kids came out of the woodwork for that. I always love going into the markets in town. People hate going with me because it's a little bit of a pressure feel. You've got the vendors not happy about getting pictures. They're really not. They know you're not there to buy anything because you're not gonna buy my food. So why are you bothering me? But the pictures are incredible. So I usually try to strike up a friendship with them and just really, oh come on, you're so beautiful. I have to take your picture. It becomes a little bit of a fun time together as we do that. But I love being in the midst of life because this is their grocery store, and I didn't even really capture it on these pictures. You can see the other 1,000 from that day, but just really wonderful. Being with the kids in schools, we went in and visited different schools, and how how seriously they take their education. It's really powerful. You know, every time I hear one of our kids, or even one of my kids, talk about how, I have to go to school today. You know, these kids will do whatever it takes to get a seat. And literally, in high school, you have to pass a test to go on to the next grade, which sounds logical, but literally, you only get one chance. So if you don't pass the test, your education is done, even though you're paying for it. You know, even though you're paying to be there in high school, you get one chance, and then you didn't measure up, so we'll find something else for you to do. So it's that serious, and kids are really focused on the importance of education, and they know it. This was an interesting scene at the school. There was a whole group of ladies that were building something. I never really found out what they were building, but they're getting sand together. They're all digging the sand. It was just this huge work group working to put this on, which was neat to see. And then the kids just always want to get their picture, especially if you show it to them right afterwards. So. We also visited some dispensaries. So they don't have a lot of hospitals, but they've got a lot of little dispensaries out in the villages. It's literally just a room, and then they'll usually have hopefully a nurse and then hopefully a doctor that will support the community. This is the community elders coming out to show that they have been working on supporting this dispensary, and so that was kind of a cool thing to be a part of. And being in the midst of that with Pastor Elias again, they really were showing Pastor Elias, you know, what they were doing. That was kind of one of those things. And the leaders there. And then we did a lot of tea. You stop at all these people's homes, and groups like this come out, and they want to have you for tea. And so we did that a lot, probably 5 times a day. You didn't see the 20 people on the other side of the camera, but we were the honored guests, so we got the sodas, soda everywhere. Another group that we were with. And then everywhere you go, they give us a chicken or a goat. And I haven't had that before. They don't give the Americans goats and chickens. They usually roast them for us. So they'll give you, to the honored guests, they'll give a chicken or a goat. And so we kept coming home with all these chickens and goats, which is just like bizarre, you know, having a goat right next to you in the car. And the goat wasn't real happy. So, but what was kind of interesting about that was this was supportive of the ministry of Pastor Elias. So often it's seen as this is not helping you personally, it's helping you for your ministry. So when you have people come over to your house, you now have something to feed them. So that's kind of the idea with it that we talked about. So when he came back after the election, we had a gathering for him, the Meru committee, and we celebrated him as Baba Asakofu, which means Father Bishop, elect. So that was kind of fun as the Meru committee here. So we're all really excited because we know Elias, and now that he'll be bishop there, we've got this nice connection as churches with him. And then we had a cake for him. When they do a cake there, it's always a roasted goat. So, and I didn't really think that was true, but then you start seeing people's wedding photos where they're cutting the cake. It's a goat, you know, they're all smiling next to the goat. And so they really don't do sweets. They don't do sweets, probably to their benefit. And but we do sweets. And so we had a donut cake. These are all donuts we bought, and we put up a picture of a goat on top. So that was him cutting the cake. And, another trip I did was to Peru. This was with a good friend of mine. Mark Brandberg, he and I grew up together, and we've been friends. He is third from the left. He wanted to travel with me. He kind of wanted to come to Tanzania. And I said, at first I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And then after we talked about it, I thought, I'm going to be following Pastor Elias around. And it probably is not going to be exciting. It's probably going to be a lot of meeting the other pastors, and it's not going to be this vision of what most people think of going to Africa, When we do our trips, I try to make sure that vision is in there. So when we go in January, we're doing 3 nights at a safari in the bottom of the Serengeti. So that's going to be great. But that trip wasn't going to work. So I said, well, if you want to do another trip, I'd be game for it. And so he had always wanted to go to South America, so that's why I kind of picked Peru. And beautiful place, tons of Incan temples and structures that are around all over the place. I forget the name of this one, but it's down in Sacred Valley. It's down at the end of the Sacred Valley in Cusco. And just incredible structures that they have built. And the thought of how they did this stuff was just amazing. And so you get to go all over it. And our tour guide is Incan and still practices kind of the native religion. And so he and I talked about it quite a bit, which was interesting, just this sense of his worship. And at each one of these stops, he would stop and say a prayer. And the ladies there are just beautiful, getting to see all the decorations that they wear and how they dress. Often the streets are real narrow and such. One of the places we had to stop was to learn how to make corn beer. They have a strawberry version. I'm more of the sweet kind of drinker. I like I'm not real good with hard liquor, but this was just a nice sweet strawberry drink. So, but they make it right there, and she was showing us how they made it. Seeing the different valleys. This is the Sacred Valley looking down in, and it's kind of the gateway to Machu Picchu. There's a whole bunch of other relics around there and temples, and so places like this, that are just kind of amazing, right in the Andes. So you're right up in the top of the Andes in a lot of these places. Doesn't feel like it, but I think the highest we got was 14,000 feet. But like Machu Picchu is actually quite low. It's right around 4,000 feet. So people think of it as like the top of the Andes, but it's not. It's actually quite low. But had a great time of just seeing the different places, stopping at some cemeteries, above ground cemeteries, and witnessing how they lived, and very agricultural. This is a salt mine. I've never really seen a salt mine, but really interesting how the water flows through and how it collects the salt and how they let it crystallize and collect it. So that was neat to see. It was a tourist trip. This trip was really a tourist trip, and I was just following along the tour guide. Machu Picchu, who has been to Machu Picchu? A few of you? It's kind of one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it's just, I think it was discovered around 1920, that this just lost civilization, lost area. And it's really remote, so trying to get to it is difficult, but you have to take a train down the valley. You get to the lower part of the area, and they've built up this whole tourist section. I think I was trying to back up. So there's a lot of shops and a lot of things to sell you at the base. And then you get on a bus and you go up to Machu Picchu. It takes you about an hour to get up. So it's just trains, planes, the whole thing to get there. And they only let a certain number of people in per day. And so it's the masses. But you get into Machu Picchu, and this is the view. So this whole civilization that used to live here, and this was lost for a long time, that people didn't know, or at least the modern world didn't know about it, until some explorers found out, and it kind of started to bring people there. Because it's, especially without modern ways of getting there, it would have been like a 4-day trek to get up to this. But really beautiful spot, and this is our tour group. And this is kind of a funny shot. We're walking around Machu Picchu, and everybody's like flocking to these guys. And they're like, who is this? And they're like, oh, this is one of the famous death metal bands of Peru. I forget the name, but it's like death Death Favor or something is their name. So my friend's like, can I get your picture? Like, sure. Like, you got any shirts? No, leave us alone. So then we bumped into him again at another thing. So, llamas everywhere, which is kind of cool. So that was, Machu Picchu was just really a pretty incredible experience. It's pretty much a day by itself, just going through, and they've got it set up in a way you literally have to follow a trail. So because of the masses, you just can't let everybody just walk wherever they want. You actually have to follow a route, and you have to go out to come back in. So in the morning it was really cloudy like this, and then we wanted better pictures when it was sunny. So this was actually in the morning, went through the whole thing, and my friend and I came back up and did it again so we can get some better sunny shots at the end. But pretty cool. This was Kustatan, and really neat city. Like I said, I love to go to the markets. This is everyone selling their flowers and selling herbs, and then you go into the actual market where they prepare stuff, and you go in and get your lunch, and that was pretty cool to be a part of their just general market. We also went into the graveyards. Really interesting. There's this whole culture of children that live off of cleaning people's graves. So you give them $1 for cleaning the graves. The graves are all above ground like this, and I'll have like people put little trinkets in them of the loved one, and so you get these kids to come along and pay them $1 to clean the copper on the outside and make it look nice. So they use lime. They rub lime all over it, and then they clean it. So it's interesting. We saw a lot of different churches and temples. Ladies are beautiful in their native costumes. Not everybody dresses this way. These are the people that are looking for their pictures, and then you give them $1 for their pictures or whatever. But llamas everywhere. I like the blackface llama. That was really cool. I don't think you can see. He was looking for a haircut. But you get this view up from above down into, it's a big city, but really neat culture. And at the top, they have a kind of like a Rio de Janeiro, Jesus at the top. So it's pretty neat to see this. Different stops along the way, different people. Like I said, if you want to see more pictures, I've got about another 10,000 up approved. So I tried to just pull off a couple. At nights, there would tons of festivals. Like every night they'd have another festival. It's like, and then somebody would win an award, the best band. It's like, you're doing this every night? What is this? And then we went up to Puno, which is the highest spot. It's called the Floating Cities. What's kind of interesting about it is this whole group of people decided to, or learned how to, I don't know how it started, about 100 years ago, started making these little floating communities. So they cut the reeds down, these 6-foot reeds, and they start stacking them. And those are what they're standing on, and they float. And so they go down about 4 feet into the water, and they just kind of keep cutting reeds and keep stacking and keep building up their community. And they have little huts that they live in. They cook out there, which you have to be careful of. But it's pretty amazing. So there's about 100 of these little islands. They're probably, 100 by 100 feet in terms of an island. Now, of course, is a huge tourist area. So you take a boat out, and then they wave, "Come on, come to my island," and you pay them to be on your island, and they show you and give you a little tour. And so it's a big tourist industry right now, but a lot of interesting questions about, well, how does this work in terms of all the issues that go on in society? What if you don't like each other? You're on that island together. What if someone doesn't do what you want or isn't behaving well? What do you do? So it was some interesting discussions throughout there. Came back to Lima, and this is down at the ocean. My friend and I walked down there, and this is our tour guide. This is the good picture of me. His good picture is the one before, and mine is terrible there, so I used the good one of me. But we had a great time in Peru. I'm really running out of time, so I want to get through these, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting any of these important topics. I did a video for the bishop's retirement, so that was one of the projects I worked on. Also, this is going to be next week's topic. Linda Chadwick, where are you, Linda? I think she's here someplace. So Linda, this is really Linda's project. I just took the pictures. I had the idea, and Pastor Niebling, our founding pastor, wrote a book in 1951 when they put in the stained glass windows. So they originally did the church nave, and then a year later people raised money to give the stained glass. So they're beautiful, obviously, and he did a little book. He wrote all the words to it, and so it's a devotional book, but he had always wanted it to be in color, and they couldn't afford to do it. So we did it. So I took the pictures. We are going to have these for sale next week. They're $20 each, but it's essentially all the different pictures from each window. And Linda has put this together. She's the one that did all the work. I just took a few pictures. So thank you, Linda. So if you ever need someone to do really good publishing work or websites or any of that, she does a wonderful job. So this book goes through his book using his words. So it's really, he wrote it, Niebling, but we just put it into a context that's for us, but essentially using his original book. And then getting close-ups of this. So next week we're going to do a class on the stained glass. Al Van Lith, who's done that class before, I'm going to let him lead this, but we will have these available if you'd like to purchase one. We only did a small quantity of them, but because we figured the entire church didn't want to spend $20 on them, but we will have a few, and if you want to get them next week, there are those. So we're really excited about that. So a couple of the close-ups of the pictures. And you can see all of them, but usually we don't get a close-up of them. We usually don't look at them that closely. Then Lois Weber, who knew Lois? A lot of us. If you remember the old church nursery, the original nursery down, these are all the broken ones, so that's why I have them up here. But they got damaged, so we actually had them redone. But we took all of the pictures that were down in the original nursery and made them into actual hangable framed pictures. Not framed, but. So, if some of you remember the old mural that was on the wall, we didn't do it as a full wall mural, but we took the pictures, we tried to get them as big as we could. They're canvas wrapped, and then we have them now, if you want to go see them, in room 101 down by the nursery, the current nursery. So that classroom moved to 101 when we had to do the kitchen work. When we did the kitchen, we lost Lois's mural. So I remember meeting with Lois before she passed away and telling her we were going to have to do that to the room. And it was one of these, she's like, I knew we were going to have to do this, but I just don't want to lose that mural. So my promise to her was, in some way, shape, or form, we'd capture the mural. And so a number of the different pictures that were a part of that. These are the ones, like I said, they came damaged. You can kind of see how they were crinkled. So I made them reprint them. So the good ones that came in uncrinkled are on the wall down there right now. We repainted the wall. We did to go along closer with the colors.
Before.
And tried to honor her wishes there. The one that is always kind of funny, I don't know if people have ever realized this, but there's a chicken just about to be killed in this picture. He's stepping on the chicken right here. Kurt Weber always says that's my favorite, where the kid's gonna step on the chicken. Anyway, so we did that. You can go check them out down in room 101 by the nursery and try to capture those.
So did Lois paint those?
Lois did not paint those. Emily, I forget her last name, painted them. It was it would have been after 1950 when that whole building was created. So, but that was where her Sunday school room was. So she kind of claimed them as one of her favorites, and she was like, "We can't lose those pictures, Pastor." So one of the other things I did was do staff photos. We redid the staff photos and kind of got those up to date. And so, and in terms of photography, just did a lot of other photography things. I had a number of families want me to do some stuff and did some portrait stuff for people, which was kind of fun. I did 2 senior photos, stuff like that. I got to play with my drone and experience that kind of photography, which was a lot of fun too. So those kind of projects. And one of the other things we did, which is not real sexy, but I've wanted to clean out a number of the rooms here in the building. If any of you went in the old workroom, it was about 6 feet high, completely packed with stuff. I'm partially to blame for that. And so trying to get that all cleared out, donated, made into a good room. So now it's a nice meeting room down in the back corner, the old Ron Zess room, if anybody remembers that old title. So we've do those kind of things. There was about 4 rooms that really needed attention, and I kind of made that one of my little projects that I worked on as well, kind of getting those things. So it gives you a summary for what I did during this time. It was a good time. It was a little bit of a hard time for me because I need structure, I think, in my day. I need a sense of order, and not having that was always a little bit disconcerting, and I think that's what it feels like to be retired. It's like, what am I doing with my day? And okay, I like to see things accomplished. I like to see things, and so that's a little bit of a challenge for me. But it was good time. It was time that stepping back. Pastor Jim Bickle of our synod said, you know, when you step back on sabbatical, you realize, he said, I realized how hard I had been working. And it was kind of interesting that way when you step back and you finally go, wow, yeah, that was quite a pace. And now that I'm stepping back into it, it's kind of the other way. Whoa, here we go. And we did have a couple things I did have to handle even during that time. Holly retiring, that was one of the pieces that we had to start up the interviews. A couple other staff issues and things like that. So that was a little bit hard in that kind of a disjointed feel of jumping back in and trying to lead, but still trying to be on sabbatical too. But overall, I really appreciate the time. I appreciate the gift. It was a wonderful chance to just be gone for a while, but still thinking about St. Matthew's ministry and what kind of things we can bring about here. And some of those things are going to take place, but in getting a few things done that I've always wanted to get done, like that promise to Lois, trying to get that accomplished. Getting the stained glass project was a wonderful gift to get done. I've always wanted to do it, and so finally being able to do it. So thank you for the opportunity and the great experience. Thanks.